Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Objektif pembelajaran untuk ceramah ini adalah di akhir sesi ini diharapkan peserta akan dapat memahami definisi kesejahteraan mental, kepentingan kesejahteraan mental, pengurusan kesihatan mental dan emosi selepas diagnosis kanser dan pengurusan kesihatan mental semasa pandemik COVID-19 ini. Jadi, apakah dia itu kesihatan mental? Mengikut definisi World Health Organization, iaitu WHO, ianya kemampuan seseorang individu, kelompok dan persekitaran untuk berinteraksi antara satu sama lain bagi mempromosi kesejahteraan subjektif serta fungsi yang optimal dan penggunaan keupayaan kognitif, efektif dan berhubungan ke arah pencapaian matlamat individu dan kumpulan yang selari dengan keadilan. So, saya ingin memohon izin untuk bercakap dan memberi penerangan dalam bahasa Inggeris juga. So, I know the definition here is complicated, but what we are trying to make you understand is mental health is not just about the mind. It's actually an interaction between a person, a group, and your environment to promote subjective well-being and optimal functioning. And it has to be consistent with justice. And what does it use? Keupayaan kognitif is your cognition, which is your mind. Effective is your emotions, and perhubungan is your relationships. Jadi, definisi kesejahteraan mental pula adalah satu konsep yang memerlukan keseimbangan di antara aspek fizikal, psikologi, kerohanian dan sosial. Kesemua aspek ini saling berkait bagi mempengaruhi kebolehan seseorang individu bertindak balas dengan cara yang sesuai dan sewajarnya. So, good mental health leads to good mental well-being. Kesihatan mental yang baik akan membawa kepada kesejahteraan mental. Jadi, kesihatan mental juga merujuk kepada cara kita berfikir, merasa dan bertindak. Because your thoughts affect your emotions and that affects your actions. Kita dapat menghadapi masalah dan mengatasinya dengan baik dan juga merujuk kepada cara kita berinteraksi dengan orang lain. Apakah kepentingan kesejahteraan mental? So, for patients, untuk pesakit, kita perlu ingat bahawa kesihatan fizikal dan mental adalah saling berkait. Sebarang penyakit atau gangguan fizikal boleh mempengaruhi kesihatan mental dan emosi seseorang dan juga sebaliknya. That means your physical health can affect your mental and emotional health, but your mental and emotional health can also affect your physical health. Jadi apa itu ciri-ciri kesihatan mental yang baik? Pertama sekali, kita perlu selesa dengan diri sendiri. Kedua, selesa dengan orang lain. Dan ketiga, boleh mendepani segala cabaran dalam kehidupan. Okay. So, I've simplified it into these three main topics. Jadi, bagaimana kita selesa dengan diri sendiri? Kita perlu sayangi dan hormati diri sendiri. So, how do you love yourself? Cuba bayangkan orang yang kita paling sayangi. Who are the people you love? Bagaimana kita melayan orang tu? How do we talk to that person, treat that person? So that is the same way how you should treat yourself. The way you treat someone you love. Okay. Dan kita perlu hormati diri kita sendiri. We have to respect ourselves. Tapi kita seharus bersikap realistik, menerima segala kelebihan dan kekurangan diri dan sentiasa bersyukur dengan kehidupan, because no one is perfect. Kita perlu selesa dengan orang lain. Jadi, dengan menyayangi diri kita sendiri, kita boleh juga menyayangi orang lain. Kita mempunyai rasa tanggungjawab terhadap orang lain, memahami dan menghormati perbezaan antara satu sama lain. Because no one is exactly the same. We all have our differences. dan tidak mengambil kesempatan terhadap kelebihan atau kekurangan orang lain, kerana kita juga tidak mahu orang mengambil kesempatan terhadap diri kita, dan boleh mendepani segala cabaran dalam kehidupan dengan menggunakan segala kebolehan dan kelebihan yang ada pada diri kita. Because each and every one of us have our strengths and also our weaknesses, but we can use our strengths to help ourselves and others. Dan tetapkan matlamat hidup yang realistik. So how do you know when something is realistic? Kita belajar dari pengalaman dan kesilapan diri kita sendiri dan juga pengalaman dan kesilapan orang lain. Mampu membuat keputusan sendiri dan berpuas hati setelah melakukan yang terbaik. We always give praise to other people when they do well, but sometimes you need to know when to pat yourself on the back also sometimes. Jadi ini adalah hasil tinjauan Kebangsaan Kesihatan dan Mobiliti, iaitu NHMS, also known as the National Health and Mobility Survey 2019 yang berkaitan dengan kesihatan mental di Malaysia. So this is actually a very huge study which is conducted by Institut Kesihatan Umum, where you do research and you do kajian lah di kalangan rakyat Malaysia. So they go into thousands of households and they interview people on the common diseases in Malaysia. Jadi untuk kemurungan di golongan dewasa di Malaysia, didapati bahawa prevalence-nya adalah 2.3%. It looks like a small figure, but it's actually 500,000 people. And what was used here is actually a questionnaire, borang soal selidik yang dikenali dengan nama Patient Health Questionnaire. It has 9 items to assess and determine whether someone has a risk of having depression. So it is not a diagnostic tool. That means it is not a diagnosis by a psychiatrist or actually a borang saringan. Apa yang didapati dari kajian NHMS ni adalah kalangan penduduk luar bandar dan juga lebih tinggi di kalangan orang bujang dan orang yang telah bercerai ataupun duda. Bagaimana kita hendak menguruskan kesihatan mental dan emosi selepas diagnosis kanser? All of us know cancer is a very stressful diagnosis. So definitely there's some psychological stress associated with it. So jadi definisi tekanan psikologikal adalah satu kecelaruan emosi dan perasaan yang boleh diterangkan melalui gejala kemurungan, iaitu depression, dan kecelaruan kebimbangan, iaitu anxiety. Terdapat kajian yang dijalankan di Malaysia yang menunjukkan bahawa di kalangan 1,490 pesakit yang baru didiagnos dengan kanser, 54% mengalami kecelaruan kebimbangan. That's more than half of the number of patients, manakala hampir sepertiga, iaitu 27% mengalami kemurungan. Pesakit kanser boleh mengalami kemurungan dan atau kecelaruan kebimbangan pada mana-mana fasa penyakit, dari pra-diagnosis sehingga fasa akhir penyakit. Because cancer is very stressful. So sometimes for some patients, while they are going the screening test and waiting for their results, they are actually developing symptoms of psychological stress already. Tekanan psikologikal boleh memberikan impak negatif terhadap komitmen kepada rawatan, kesembuhan, kualiti hidup dan survival penyakit kanser. Tekanan ini turut boleh dirasai oleh ahli keluarga terdekat mereka. Survivor kanser boleh berhadapan dengan cabaran kesihatan fizikal dan mental, sama ada untuk jangka masa yang singkat ataupun yang panjang. Cabaran ini boleh dirasai semasa, selepas rawatan dan boleh berlarutan sepanjang hayat. Survivor kanser perlu menjalani pemantauan bagi pengulangan kanser atau pembentukan kanser yang baru. So because of this fear of recurrence. So that's an additional psychological stress for cancer patients. Jadi bagi mereka yang turut mempunyai risiko atau masalah kesihatan yang lain seperti kencing manis, darah tinggi, penyakit jantung, keadaan semestinya lebih mencabar. Ada satu lagi kajian di Malaysia yang menunjukkan sebanyak 34% dari pesakit kanser yang sedang menjalani rawatan kemoterapi di hospital kerajaan di Semenanjung Malaysia dilaporkan mengalami kemurungan. Jadi kemurungan itu adalah satu keadaan kecelaruan mental yang menyebabkan perasaan ataupun mood yang sedih dan hilang minat yang berpanjangan yang menjejaskan kehidupan harian termasuk pemikiran, tingkah laku dan kesejahteraan. Okay, this is not just a normal sadness or loss of interest that we sometimes feel as human beings every day. This is something that is prolonged and it occurs almost the whole day, almost every day for at least 2 weeks, sometimes more than a month, and it affects the daily activities of someone. Tanda kemurungan adalah seperti sentiasa sedih, mudah menangis, mudah tersinggung, letih, tidak bernaya, tidak berminat melakukan aktiviti kegemaran, rasa bersalah yang tidak menentu, hilang selera makan, suka menyendiri dan menjauhi orang lain, dan kadang-kadang terdapat cubaan untuk mencederakan atau membunuh diri. And this is actually the concern of depression because it can lead to suicidal thoughts and also suicidal behavior. Pesakit kanser juga cenderung untuk mengalami kecelaruan kebimbangan, terutamanya apabila mengetahui kanser telah merebak ataupun rawatan bertambah intensif. Perasaan bimbang mungkin meningkat atau berkurang pada masa yang berbeza dan tahap kebimbangan yang dialami mungkin berbeza bagi setiap pesakit. Tanda kecelaruan kebimbangan adalah seperti sentiasa berasa bimbang dan cemas, sering berasa resah dan gelisah, sukar untuk bertenang, mudah marah, mudah tersinggung, sukar untuk fokus kepada sesuatu perkara, sukar tidur, ketegangan otot, sukar bernafas ataupun bernafas laju, tekanan darah meningkat, jantung berdegup laju dan mungkin mempunyai perasaan pening dan loya. Sekiranya pesakit kanser mengalami tanda dan gejala kemurungan ataupun kecelaruan kebimbangan, mereka perlulah hubungi perkhidmatan sokongan kesihatan mental. Okay, you can talk to your family members and your friends first, but if you feel that it's not getting better, it's getting worse, it's better to actually seek some advice, some professional advice. Dan boleh juga menjalani ujian saringan kemurungan dan kecelaruan kebimbangan. There are so many questionnaires on the web now. It's just that you have to know which valid questionnaires to use. Like I said, I have the 2 questionnaires here which I'll share at the end of my lecture. And apa yang perlu diingat semasa menjalani ujian saringan is setengah borang soal selidik itu boleh dijawab dengan sendiri, setengah itu perlu dibuat dengan pakar kesihatan. But when you answer any questionnaires on your own, please be very careful with how you interpret it. You might also want to ask professional advice and help when you interpret the scores that you get. Buatlah temu janji bersama pakar kesihatan mental. Like I said, professional help is actually important dan jalani rawatan kesihatan mental yang bersesuaian sebab bukan semua rawatan itu sama untuk setiap orang, setiap individu dan juga tahap kesihatan mental yang berbeza. Terdapat rawatan kesihatan mental yang berbeza, so it can actually be tapered according to your needs. Untuk pengurusan kesihatan mental semasa pandemik COVID-19, we all know that as a patient it must be more challenging for you. Jadi cabaran pesakit kanser mendepani pandemik COVID-19 adalah tinggi sebab mereka mempunyai risiko mengalami komplikasi akibat jangkitan COVID-19. Mungkin terdapat penangguhan kepada sesi rawatan kanser, perlu kebenaran dan menempuh siri sekatan jalan raya bagi merentas negeri semasa PKP dan juga kebimbangan terhadap jangkitan COVID-19 apabila meneruskan rawatan di hospital. So there's a lot of actually manuals and modules which have been put up by Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia on COVID-19. So this is the one for cancer patients. Penyakit kanser mempunyai tahap imunisasi yang rendah, okay? Dan oleh itu berisiko tinggi untuk mendapat komplikasi sehingga boleh menyebabkan kematian sekiranya dijangkiti dengan COVID-19. Jadi apa yang perlu pesakit kanser lakukan bagi mendepani cabaran COVID-19? Okay. Perlu bertenang, jangan panik, ikut saranan doktor dan teruskan pelan rawatan mengikut prosedur yang ditetapkan sebab your doctors know what they are doing. Ya. Amalkan tahap kebersihan yang tinggi, cuci tangan dengan sabun dan air ataupun hand sanitizer. Jangan keluar rumah kecuali jika perlu, like if you really have to, you have to go for your treatment. Dan cuba elakkan 3S iaitu tempat sesak, ruangan sempit dan sembang dekat. Patuhi semua standard operation procedure ketika berada di luar rumah seperti memakai pelitup muka, penjarakan sosial dan jangan bersalaman. Elakkan penggunaan kenderaan awam if you can, because you don't know who has been on those transportation and what you are exposed to. Amalkan gaya hidup yang sihat. This is actually for everyone. Okay. Makan makanan yang sihat, yang berkhasiat, tingkatkan pengambilan sayuran dan buah-buahan bagi meningkatkan imuniti badan dan lakukan aktiviti fizikal yang bersesuaian. Berfikiranlah secara positif dan kawal kebimbangan. So communicate with your loved ones, your family, your friends, the other cancer survivors and also with your doctor. Hubungi perkhidmatan kesihatan mental jika perlu. Tidur secukupnya. Okay, this is important. Have enough sleep. Cari maklumat tentang kanser dan COVID-19 dari sumber yang dipercayai. This is very, very important because now in our era now there's so much information and you don't know which is true and which is not, which is valid or which is reliable. For COVID-19 and cancer, please look to Ministry of Health Malaysia, KKM. Dia dah sediakan banyak maklumat and they are all credible and valid information. Dan berehat dari media sosial jika perlu. Okay, so this can, because of all the information that we get on social media, this can sometimes create more stress. Okay, so take a break from social media if you have to. Jangan mudah percaya dan terpedaya dengan penjualan produk overclaim dan kaedah rawatan alternatif yang diragui. Sebab kadang-kadang pesakit kanser ni macam you are sometimes in a vulnerable group where you are willing to buy and try anything to get better. So sometimes this is taken advantage of by some salespeople. Segera hubungi klinik kesihatan yang berhampiran ataupun we have our crisis preparedness and response center which is available 24 hours sekiranya mengalami gejala COVID-19. Okay, this is from Institute Kanser Negara. The nasihat di sini adalah perhatikan tahap kesihatan anda. Jika anda mengidap penyakit kanser ataupun seorang survivor kanser, perhatikan setiap perubahan dalam kesihatan diri anda dan dapatkan nasihat perubatan dengan kadar segera kerana anda berisiko untuk mendapat jangkitan critical COVID-19. So IKN has also posted a lot of information online. Apa yang perlu dilakukan oleh penjaga pesakit kanser bagi melindungi pesakit dari jangkitan COVID-19. So here we're talking about the carers. Okay, carers are very important. Sentiasa jaga kebersihan diri dan persekitaran rumah. Amalkan segala langkah pencegahan COVID-19 dan patuhi semua SOP. Sekiranya perlu keluar rumah, bersihkan diri sebelum bertemu dan menyentuh pesakit. Okay. Sediakan sajian berkhasiat untuk pesakit. Pastikan pesakit mengambil ubatan dan jalani rawatan mengikut masa yang ditetapkan. Berikan sokongan emosi dengan berkomunikasi dan mendengar luahan pesakit. Bawa pesakit untuk mendapat khidmat kesihatan mental jika perlu dan dapatkan maklumat tentang kanser dan COVID-19 dari sumber yang tepat dan dipercayai. Okay, for carers, you have actually dual responsibility. One is to the patient, but most importantly is also yourself. Look after yourself also and look after your own emotions, because you need to look after yourself first before you can give good care to others. Okay, I would like to share here. There are some of the talian sokongan. So ini beberapa senarai perkhidmatan talian sokongan kesihatan mental di Malaysia. So ini perkhidmatan yang dikendalikan oleh petugas psikologi KKM dan juga sukarelawan Mercy, iaitu talian sokongan psikososial COVID-19. And we have Mentari, perkhidmatan kesihatan mental from KKM. Ini adalah Mentari untuk setiap negeri dan juga nombor telefon yang boleh dihubungi. Dan Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga dan Masyarakat telah menyediakan talian kasih untuk aduan masyarakat, untuk kaunseling, untuk perlindungan kebajikan dan juga aplikasi WhatsApp, and this is 24 hourly. And there are so many NGOs actually that provide this kind of services, but Befrienders is a very good NGO, so I'm mentioning them here, and you can contact them through Skype or phone. Okay, di Universiti Putra Malaysia, kita ada pusat sumber dan pendidikan kanser yang ditubuhkan oleh mantan pengarah kita, iaitu Prof Mazna. So di sini care mempunyai talian bebas tol kanser, di mana kita memberi maklumat dan sokongan kanser melalui telefon oleh jururawat kita, iaitu Matron Syafiqah. You can see her here. Dan waktu perkhidmatan adalah office hours, but we also have our Facebook and we also have our emails that you can contact us at any time. Dan di Hospital Pengajar UPM, kita mempunyai counselor, there's counselling for all. Jadi kita actually menyediakan counselling ni untuk mana-mana pesakit yang memerlukan perkhidmatan ini. For cancer survivors or cancer patients, you can actually contact us through care, and if there is a need, we can refer you for counselling to the hospital. Jadi kesimpulannya, kesejahteraan mental itu amat penting bagi memastikan kesihatan fizikal dan kualiti hidup yang baik. Pesakit kanser perlu mengurus stres dan emosi dengan baik bagi mengelakkan tekanan psikologikal seperti kemurungan dan kecelaruan kebimbangan. These actually are the two most common mental health disorders in the community. It's not only for cancer patients, it's for everyone. Dan pesakit kanser perlu menjaga kesihatan fizikal dan mental bagi mendepani cabaran pandemik COVID-19. Okay. So it is very important for all of us to remember that seeking help is actually a sign of strength. So before I end my lecture, I just want to share with you, like I said, this is the patient health questionnaire, which has 9 questions to determine whether someone is at risk of having depression. And again, I stress, this is not a diagnostic tool, it is a screening tool. Dia merupakan borang saringan, and this is the same for the generalized anxiety disorder questionnaire. It is a screening tool for anxiety. And CARE has developed this website untuk penilaian risiko kesihatan mental, iaitu kemurungan dan kecelaruan kebimbangan, menggunakan 2 borang soal sedilidik yang telah saya tunjukkan tadi, iaitu PHQ-9 dan GAD-7 secara atas talian. So if you have the time, you can go to this website, you can register with your email, and then you can try to find out what is your risk. Okay, and if you need any help, please you can contact us at any time. So dengan ini saya mengakhiri ceramah saya dengan berbanyak terima kasih di atas perhatian semua orang. Terima kasih.
Prof, ada satu soalan yang saya terima untuk pesakit kanser. Pesakit kanser ini masih bergaul dengan orang sekeliling, tapi beliau mengelak untuk bercerita tentang sakit yang dialami. Adakah ia dikira sebagai kesihatan mental yang tidak sihat?
Ini untuk seorang pesakit kanser ke?
Ya, betul.
Okay. So dia masih bergaul dengan orang, tetapi dia cuba mengelak daripada berceritakan berkenaan diri dia sendiri. Okay, so dia sebenarnya untuk kesihatan mental ni, there are a lot of ways of determining whether your mental health is normal or not. Jadi kalau kita ikut borang saringan untuk kemurungan, there are so many questions that you have to answer and you have to score. So this is just one symptom that I see lah. Jadi satu tanda aja. Dia masih bergaul dengan orang tetapi dia tidak mahu bercerita pasal diri dia. So sometimes just this one symptom cannot determine whether someone is having mental health problems or depression. Sebab kita perlu juga lihat kepada simptom-simptom lain, like are they feeling depressed, are they feeling sad, macam mana dengan kerja dia yang lain, dia suka tak buat benda yang dia selalu suka buat, selain daripada bergaul dengan orang, dia masih suka masak ke, ataupun dia masih suka lakukan hobi dia, macam mana pemakanan dia, tambah selera ke, kurang selera, ataupun tidur secukupnya ataupun susah nak tidur. Lagi satu, dia punya energy level, are they feeling still energized, ataupun dah merasa macam selalu letih, tidak bermaya. So there are so many other symptoms. Actually there are nine symptoms and there are even more. So we cannot detect with just one symptom. Kadang-kadang maybe someone is just feeling sad, they are not feeling ready to talk about it, about their condition to people. Sometimes people need to understand and accept what they themselves are going through before they are able to talk about it to others. So there are many issues here. So kena tengok secara menyeluruh lah. Tak boleh tengok dengan satu simptom sahaja.
Okay. Terima kasih, Prof.
Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Macam tadi Prof beri penerangan untuk konteks pesakit kanser menghadapi cabaran kanser dan juga situasi pandemik. Bagaimana pula pada mereka yang bukan dalam kelompok itu? Boleh mungkin Prof terangkan sedikit? Adakah sama atau ada perbezaan?
Untuk orang yang tidak menghadapi kanser,
Ya, betul.
Yes, actually mental health is actually for everyone, kan? So for patients suffering from cancer, you have your dugaan, your cabaran, okay? But for other people who don't have cancer, so I'm sure macam-macam dugaan dan cabaran, kan? So all of us have our challenges. But untuk kesejahteraan mental, the tips that you need to follow are actually the same for everyone, you know. Seperti berfikiran positif, learn to love yourself, love others, and then try to take the right action that you can. Jadi sebenarnya I would say that you can actually apply this to anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're having cancer or you're having another disease ataupun you're okay, because even when you're okay, you're probably looking after someone else who's not okay. You probably have other problems in your life, sebab manusia ni kita penuh dengan dugaan dan cabaran, kan, dan kita perlu mengetahui apa itu cabaran yang perlu dihadapi, macam mana cabaran itu perlu dihadapi dengan baik. So we always have to look after our mental health for everyone.
Macam mana pendekatan? Adakah berbeza daripada kelompok golongan yang muda ataupun golongan yang warga emas? Adakah pendekatan untuk mengatasi cabaran itu berbeza atau sama sahaja?
Kalau secara keseluruhan ya memang samalah, tetapi kalau secara terperinci mungkin untuk golongan warga emas, you have higher risk of certain diseases. Memang macam even COVID-19, kan, the higher risk are the warga emas. And then of course as we grow older, semua orang akan menghadapi masa tua. So as you grow older, you will realize realize that mungkin terdapat lebih banyak risiko untuk mengalami bermacam-macam penyakit. Lepas tu dari segi deria, mata telinga mungkin dah tak boleh dengar dengan begitu baik, mungkin tak boleh lihat dengan begitu baik. So you actually have to be more careful sebagai seorang warga emas, kena lebih prihatin dengan kesihatan kita, sebab many things yang golongan muda the ones that they take for granted, actually the young, you actually take your health for granted, and that is actually something which is so important. And semasa kita mula tua, semasa kita tua tu baru kita faham, kita sedar that how important that health was. So untuk warga emas mungkin kena lebih prihatin. You have to watch your health even more, but it doesn't mean golongan muda tu tidak, sebab you will also grow old and you need to look after yourself from young so that you don't develop all those other diseases lah as you grow old. So I would just say that the general principles, apa yang kita boleh ikut secara menyeluruh tu adalah serupa, tetapi mungkin fokus dan perhatian lah mungkin berbeza mengikut umur.
Okey. Mengikut keperluan individu itu sendiri, Prof. Okey.
Betul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jadi ada tak cadangan Prof tentang apa aktiviti yang golongan warga emas ni perlu lakukan untuk memastikan diri mereka sentiasa positif?
So untuk warga emas ni, I think untuk Malaysia, definasi warga emas is 60 years old and above. But for me, it's actually still very young. You see so many people in their 60s, they are still behaving younger because they learn to appreciate health. But apa yang saya belajar daripada golongan ini adalah they are more bersyukur. They are grateful, number one. Dia bersyukur dengan apa yang dia ada, and then they learn to appreciate what they have. So they mix with other people. You need to have good social interaction with your friends. You need to mix with people who are also as positive as you lah. So you must be selective also. You need to mix with people who are positive with yourself, who are happy. And then for physical activities, of course, you need to keep on exercising. So what is recommended is actually bersenam, mengikut tahap mana yang kita mampu lah. So it's actually as long as you increase your heart rate and you do it 20 to 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. You can do it more times. You can do it 3 to 5 times a week, or if you do it every day, is even better. Macam berjalan, and then I've seen many warga emas also, they're doing Zumba. Like it's amazing. Kadang-kadang mereka memang sebab semangat tu, but you have to be careful lah with all these like jogging, Zumba. I would recommend like walking, brisk walking, berkebun, planting things is very good. And then that is for your physical health. For your mental health is, of course, you have to keep being positive. You have to mix with people who bring out the positivity in you. Okay, emotional health is that you must be aware of your emotions lah, and then you must also be realistic lah, sebab semakin tua mungkin tidak boleh melakukan segala yang kita dapat buat semasa kita muda. And spiritual health is so important, So yes, all these your religion, you're praying, believing in Allah, and for other religions believing in your God, and then knowing that there's a bigger picture lah, and redha dengan apa yang berlaku dan sentiasa bersyukur lah.
Okay, Prof. Jadi antara aktiviti yang Prof sebutkan tadi tu juga antara aktiviti favorite lah untuk ahli-ahli can work.
Yes,
ada saya rasa favorite activity juga untuk rakan-rakan kita di sini, berjalan, berkebun. Dia kesan daripada berkebun tu since PKP mungkin tak dapat buat apa-apa, jadi fokus kepada aktiviti itu mungkin dapat lebih ditumpukan lah. Okay. Jadi program kita selepas ini adalah untuk memenuhi konsep-konsep yang seperti Prof nyatakan tadi lah.
Okay. Yeah, and then baca Quran, ada kelas mengaji juga kan. So we have we have found dari kajian orang yang baca Quran ni dia bukan secara spiritual rohani sahaja, tapi it improves your mental well-being, you know.
Okay.
So there's so many things that you can do, you know, and then also berinteraksi dengan orang lain, dengan berjumpa dengan kawan-kawan dia, you have you know, you have a group, so that's good, yeah.
Okay. So untuk seterusnya Prof, macam mana kita nak tangani seseorang di dalam fasa kemarahan ketika individu tersebut terima perkara yang buruk atau ujian lah. Sebagai seorang rakan ataupun ahli keluarga, apa yang kita perlu buat untuk beri vibe yang positif kepada individu tadi tu?
Okay. So actually when someone is angry, apabila dia tengah marah, we should actually let them face their anger lah, you know, like biar dia luahkan segala perasaan dan kemarahan. Cuba dengar, try to listen. It is not easy actually. It's not easy to help someone who's angry, yeah? But the best thing that you can do is actually listen. Cuba dengar. What is it that's making the person angry? Biar dia luahkan perasaan dia. Dan kita juga bolehlah buat assessment. You just assess whether are they getting better. Sebab kadang-kadang apabila menerima berita yang tidak baik, seseorang itu mungkin cara reaksi dia tu adalah kepada berita yang dia terima. So dia marah. Tetapi lepas dia boleh menerima, dia akan cool down. So kita perlu tengoklah, perhatikan sama ada kemarahan dia tu reda ataupun semakin menjadi buruk. Cuba dengar luahan dan rehetehan dia. Listening is actually very important for a lot of people, you know, just having someone whom you heard has listened, that person listens with their heart, that means betul-betul mendengar is enough. You don't even have to say anything, the person just feels understood. I think all of us, we also had that kind of experience, right? Like sometimes when you're going through something very bad and you feel so angry, but you just feel that someone just understands you, that person just listens, that person doesn't even have to say anything, you actually feel better after that. So bagi kita pula, kalau kita tengah nak tolong sebagai sahabat atau keluarga, kepada ahli keluarga yang tengah marah, we try to do the same. Let that person voice out, be angry, and then just listen. What is the concern of this person here? And then after that, you see whether the person feels better or not. And then try to say the right thing. Because sometimes most people, they just want reassurance. Lepas tu kita perlulah tengok sama ada lagi langkah-langkah yang perlu dibuat, sama ada perkara ni dah selesai ataupun mungkin perlu mendapat nasihat daripada orang lain, rakan-rakan yang lain, ataupun you need professional help lah.
Okay, Prof. Jadi apa yang daripada Prof sebut tadi, bila seseorang tengah marah, kita sebagai rakan atau keluarga hanya perlu dengar tanpa perlu kata apa-apa. Itu lebih baik, Prof.
Kalau dia tengah marah lah, because when someone is angry and you try to intervene, kan, apabila seorang tu tengah marah dan kita cuba macam kadang-kadang pujuk dia, kadang-kadang dia jadi lagi teruk, ataupun kadang-kadang menaikkan kemarahan dalam diri kita sendiri, kan, kita rasa macam frust pula, kan, sebab dia tak nak dengar ke, ataupun dia jadi lebih beremosional ke. So sebagai kawan, kita pun tak bolehlah emosional, kan. Orang tu tengah emosional sekarang, so kita bagi dia luahkan perasaan dia. Cuba dengar dahulu, dan selepas itu kalau dia dah okey, baru kita boleh bercakap lah ataupun memberi nasihat yang kita rasa yang terbaik untuk dia.
Okey. Terima kasih, Prof. Tadi Prof ada sebut once seseorang tu didiagnose kanser, secara tak langsung dia akan mengalami kesan psikologi. Jadi mungkin boleh Prof beritahu apa panduan yang perlu dibuat oleh pesakit dan juga caregiver untuk menghadapi situasi kesan psikologi itu?
Apabila baru didiagnose dengan kanser ke?
Ya, menghidapi kanser.
Okay. So no one wants to get cancer, kan? Semua orang, I mean, that is something that everybody is so fearful of. So I think apa yang kita buat sekarang, seperti Persatuan Canwork, apa yang dibuat oleh Pusat Sumber dan Pendidikan Kanser di UPM, we are creating a lot of knowledge and awareness to empower people with the knowledge of cancer, so that you know that it's no more the life-threatening disease that we used to believe. Sebab look at the survivors now. Sometimes they are happier, they have better quality of life, you know, that their life becomes more meaningful selepas mendapat cancer. So satu tu the shift of what you used to believe. So kalau seseorang itu tiba-tiba dia dapat diagnosis kanser dan dia merasa macam tu, I think it is good lah untuk untuk diri dia dan juga keluarga dia untuk mendapat sumber maklumat daripada persatuan-persatuan kanser dan juga dari macam Pusat Sumber dan Pendidikan Kanser, so that you get the correct knowledge, you know, you get the correct information of what the cancer is, and you become practical about dealing with the cancer. So the first reaction is, of course, mungkin dia terkejut, dia tidak boleh menerima, dia akan berasa sedih, dia akan risau. That is normal. So that is a normal reaction. Tapi kita tidak mahu perasaan dan emosi ini menjadi satu tekanan psikologikal yang menyebabkan masalah kesihatan mental. So apa yang kita perlu tahu di sini is what are the normal emotions that a human being has. Semua orang ada perasaan marah, takut, sedih. So we all have that, but that is normal. Tapi kalau kita tak control, kita tak kawal, dia mungkin akan jadi satu disorder. Disorder is something that starts affecting you, it starts affecting your life. And if you don't control it, it becomes a disease. A disease is something that you can't function. It affects your work, it affects your social functioning, and it affects your quality of life. So we are trying to stop that progress. So kalau dia dah menerima berita yang tidak berapa baik, okay, the most important thing is get the correct information from the right sources, okay, and a lot of family support lah. I think that is very important. The family support from peer groups, support from their friends, support from other survivor cancer, and also must have a good relationship with the doctor. Okay, so yeah, so that's why. So what the work that Prof Masnah and everyone is doing is very important. Jadi perkara ini bolehlah mengurangkan risiko mendapat psychological stress. But of course there are a lot of other things that the person has to go through lah after that. So it's not a one-off. Untuk mengelakkan psychological stress sebab didiagnose dengan cancer is not a one-off thing, it's a continuous process. Okay.
Okay. Satu lagi Prof. Apabila ada rakan kita sedang menghadapi cabaran kanser, bagaimana kita nak show our care dan support tanpa mengganggu perasaan, maksudnya tanpa lagi membebankanlah dengan sokongan yang kita berikan tu.
Okay, so if this one I heard from someone who got cancer, never say to that person that, oh, I'm so scared, you know, I hope I don't get cancer. Number one, you never say that lah to your friend, you know, nobody wants to get cancer lah. But if the person has cancer, you can show your support by showing that it is just like any other disease. I mean, like, you know, there are cancer patients who have lived so long, you know, and then they have survived. So you always be a good friend and keep the positive things, you know, because like, okay, certain cancers, maybe the survival rate is very high, especially if you detect it at an early stage. That's why it's so important untuk semua orang to go for screening, so that you want to detect the cancer at an early stage. And that one, survival is very good for some cancers. It's very, very good. You can live a normal life, a better life. So you give positive reinforcement as a friend, and then why don't you join your friend for all the activities that they have to do, you know, like to increase the immunity, like the exercises and all the classes that they have to go to. As a friend, you can help to take your friend for their treatment. Katakan kawan tu memerlukan rawatan chemotherapy, why don't you take your friend for the chemotherapy sessions, be with them, show your support, at least build a better friendship. Ataupun dia perlukan radiotherapy, take them for all those sessions and then be with them, know what that person is going through actually. So you understand exactly what the person is going through and then be there for that person, so I think that's what a good friend can do.
Okay. Saya harap itu dapat menjawab persoalan rakan kita yang hadir pada hari ini. Jadi satu lagi ni Prof, macam mana seseorang itu nak hadapi sejarah penderaan fizikal dan mental yang dilalui, dan dia disebabkan oleh ahli keluarga dan juga adik-beradik. Macam mana individu itu nak menghadapi sejarah penderaan fizikal dan mental?
Sama ada perkara ini masih berlaku ataupun tidak. If it was in the past and it's not happening now, then it's quite okay. Tapi kalau orang itu masih mengalami trauma yang disebabkan didera oleh ibu bapa dia masa dia kecil, then they need to go for some counselling lah. But if the penderaan kalau penderaan itu berterusan, we have to see how old is this individual. Sebab kalau if you're underage ke ataupun seorang kadang-kadang atau remaja, you're still dependent on your parents, these things actually can be reported to your teachers. If you are still in school, you can report it to your teachers. This one can be, if it's really serious abuse, it can be reported to the police, because certain physical abuse is not tolerated at all. It is wrong, and it is a crime. So kita kena tengok, kita kena melihat sejauh mana penderaan fizikal dan mental ini. And if you are already an adult, kalau sudah dewasa, and you have your own financial stability, you can actually move away. You can actually try to assess the situation that is drawing you still to your parents, see what is causing that. You can actually create a sort of boundary for yourself. But this one, the best thing is actually to get proper professional counseling when it comes to abuse. So you can seek help from counselors, from psychologists. If the mental mental effect ataupun the psychological disorder, kesan dia adalah teruk, you can even see a psychiatrist. Tapi the most important thing is actually get professional counselling, and I would suggest counsellors first. So sekarang di klinik kesihatan, we have counselors, and there are so many like NGOs you can just contact and find out who are the appropriate counselors that you can seek help from. And there are also many private counselors, but like you have to see like the valid ones, the credible ones, just to talk and get a proper assessment on how bad this abuse is. Physical and mental abuse are both bad. Sometimes people think that mental abuse is not as bad as physical. It is not that case. Sometimes mental abuse can be very bad, and it really affects a person's life very badly. So this needs to be properly assessed, I think, by professional counselling.
Jadi yang tadi berkenaan penderaan. Jadi kalau macam mana prosedur kalau individu itu ingin mendapatkan rawatan kesihatan mental berkenaan dengan anxiety atau depression di klinik-klinik kesihatan, Prof? Boleh terus pergi ke atau macam mana?
Okay, di klinik kesihatan, you can request actually untuk membuat saringan kesihatan. For now, they are still using the depression, anxiety and stress scale, but there are so many other borang kesihatan, and we are trying to introduce the PHQ-9 and GAD-7 to all the klinik kesihatan. So you can request to do those questionnaires. So selepas membuat borang saringan tersebut, apa yang akan dibuat adalah untuk score. So based on the score, we have cut-off points to see sama ada seseorang itu mempunyai risiko untuk kemurungan ataupun kebimbangan. So if you are at a risk, then the doctor will attend to you actually. So that is the process. And actually it depends on the doctors. Setengah doktor tu dia mungkin akan menggunakan borang saringan lain ataupun dia akan buat terus dengan interview. So if you let anyone, either the doctors or the nurses ataupun MA, the medical assistants in the klinik kesihatan, they will know what to do because the SOP that is already very clear di klinik kesihatan. Kita mempunyai banyak borang soal selidik dan kita dah ada proper prosedur yang akan diikuti.
Okey, Prof. Untuk makluman semua soalan yang dikemukakan berkaitan dengan kesejahteraan mental, jadi mudah untuk kita punya penceramah untuk address the issue lah. Jadi sebelum tu mungkin saya buka 1-2 soalan yang ingin menyampaikan secara terus. Boleh sebutkan nama dan apa soalan yang ingin anda kemukakan berkenaan kesejahteraan mental. Mungkin saya boleh terima 1-2 soalan daripada tuan-puan semua. Ada tak? Okey, Prof, mungkin kita sambung ke soalan yang ada di ruangan chat ni. Beliau ini adalah caregiver kepada ayahnya yang cancer survivor, dan kemudian ayah beliau ni rasa sedih lah, menangis. Jadi mungkin apa yang perlu dia buat lah, because daripada kesan penyakit itu tidak dapat melakukan aktiviti seperti biasa. Jadi apa peranan caregiver di sini?
Perkara ni agak sedih lah kan, sebab ayah dia menjadi lebih teruk kan lepas operation tu dia. Nampaknya macam caregiver ni memang dia kena tabah lah, dia kena strong, and then dia sendiri kena jaga mental health, their own mental health lah. So sometimes the caregiver needs a lot of support sebab untuk menjaga seorang pesakit tu bukannya mudah, especially kalau pesakit tu dah hilang keupayaan. That means there's also disability there kan. Is something that is very difficult sebab you need to have physical strength to look after the father kan. So jadi mungkin ayahnya memerlukan bantuan dari segi aktiviti seharian, ataupun mungkin ayah dia bedridden, then you need someone to do proper home nursing, you know. So definitely this one needs more than one carer lah. You need to get the other family members to help, to give support. It's not an easy situation. So mungkin adik-beradik, ahli keluarga yang lain, you can make a jadual, take turns looking after. Sekiranya ada kemampuan, maybe you get professional caregivers also who are trained in looking after bedridden patients or patients with similar problems. So actually these people can help you. You know, the professional caregivers, they can help you in the correct way of treating these patients in terms of their disabilities, you know, and in how to maybe to feed them, to walk them, to bathe them. Then they also help dari segi sokongan emosi. So consider professional caregiving if you have the means, sekiranya mampu. Sekiranya tak, and you can find out from the NGOs, you know, and how to properly care for your father. Take turns with the family members. Don't do it alone. Cuba dapatkan sokongan semua orang. Sekiranya ahli keluarga tak cukup, cuba dapat sokongan dari kawan. Make a schedule to look after your father well, and look after your own health, your own mental, emotional and physical health. Sebab kadang-kadang apa yang berlaku, the caregiver is so burnt out in the end, and if the caregiver is burnt out, they cannot look after the patient well. So this needs to be like a combined support lah dari semua orang. Dia perlu mendapatkan sokongan, bukan saja emosi, dia sokongan untuk menjaga ayah dia secara fizikal daripada ahli keluarga yang lain, kawan-kawan ataupun professional help lah.
Okay. Jadi ini daripada caregiver juga Prof, adakah wajar tindakan seorang caregiver ini jika dia mengelak untuk berbincang mengenai perasaan atau penyakit kanser dengan pesakit kanser itu sendiri? Sebab kalau dia start untuk sharing the situation, dia akan menangis dan bersedih. Jadi macam mana? Adakah wajar atau apa tindakan yang perlu dilakukan oleh caregiver ini?
Okay, so caregiver ini tengah menjaga pesakit kanser lah, tengah actively jaga pesakit kanser, tetapi dia sendiri mempunyai perasaan yang sedih dan sukar nak kontrol emosi dia apabila bercakap berkenaan kanser dengan pesakit itu sendiri.
Ya, betul Prof.
Okay, so apa yang perlu ingat di sini, the patient is the main one lah. You are looking after the patient so that the patient gets better. So you don't want to make the patient more sad because they are the ones undergoing the cancer, the treatment, they are going through all that. But it doesn't mean that your feelings are not important. Sebagai carer, your feelings are equally as important as the patient's feelings, but to talk about it to the patient is not the correct platform lah, because since you are not in control, you're supposed to be giving comfort to the patient, right? So mungkin you have to talk about your problems to someone else, to someone else who can listen. That's why caregivers need a lot of support. You need to talk about your emotions to someone else. And you know, caregiving is not everything. One person cannot do everything. Dialah yang menjaga makan minum pesakit tu, dialah yang mandikan pesakit tu, dan dialah yang bagi sokongan emosi. It doesn't have to be one person. You can take turns, you know. Mungkin apa yang caregiver ni boleh buat, dia buat. Tetapi dari segi perasaan, nak sharing pasal penyakit kanser tu something yang very difficult. Mungkin orang lain yang lebih neutral, dia lebih neutral ataupun is not so affected by this, dia yang boleh bercakap dengan pesakit kanser berkenaan dengan perkara ini. So different people can do different things, you know, sebab semua orang tak sama. So some people, even though dia rasa cara dia deal, cara dia handle benda tu lain, so mungkin ada adik-beradik yang lain, dia rasa sedih juga dengan pesakit kanser tu, dan kesengsaraan ataupun penderitaan pesakit kanser tu. Tapi cara dia handle tu lain. Dia boleh cakap secara positif dengan pesakit kanser, tetapi mungkin dia tak dapat buat perkara lain untuk pesakit kanser itu. Jadi another person can do it. So you find what is the best thing you can do for as a carer for this patient, and then the one that you cannot do, you try to get someone else to handle it. You know, it doesn't have to be you. You know, if the patient wants to talk, wants to discuss, find someone else who is able to talk to that patient.
Okay, tadi pun ada sebut.
That answers your question.
Okay. So tadi pun ada sebut tentang evaluation atau questionnaire tentang kesihatan mental. Ada individu ni dia dah jawab soalan tersebut. Tetapi dia kata ada masa bagus, ada masa tidak, up and down. Normal ke pada dia?
Okay, so questionnaire ni dia sebenarnya borang soal selidik, so we can administer it at any time. So kadang-kadang apabila kita stres, katakan untuk student lah, dia sebelum exam dia buat borang soal selidik ni, memang skor dia akan tinggi, anxiety akan tinggi, mungkin depression pun akan tinggi. Lepas exam dia skor dia terus menurun. So it's actually very subjective, and then it depends on what stresses you're going on in your life at that time. So kadang-kadang naik, kadang-kadang turun is normal actually, you know. So that shows that maybe you're quite okay. We worry about people who are continuously high or the scores keep going up. That is the worrying part. And kalau tengok questionnaire tu, macam untuk PHQ-9 dengan GAD-7 is for the past 2 weeks. So dia tanya apa yang kita rasa untuk 2 minggu yang lalu. Ada questionnaire yang sekarang kita akan gunakan di klinik kesihatan juga, dikenali dengan nama WULI. It asks about depression, but it asks for the past 1 month. So your feelings for the past 1 month. So 2 weeks and 1 month actually is very subjected to what you're going through at that time. So kalau dia naik dengan turun is actually quite okay. We are just worried that when the scores keep going up or they are persistently high. That's when we worry. And if you need help to interpret the scores, please contact a professional healthcare person, so that they can interpret the scores correctly for you.
Okey, jadi skor itu bergantung pada situasi semasa kita menjawab soalan selidik tu, Prof.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, betul.
Okey. Okey, ini ada satu soalan. Bagaimana dengan survivor yang dia juga adalah caregiver? Macam mana dia nak manage dia punya mental health tu, Prof?
So
dia
is
juga survivor, dia juga caregiver.
This is actually very challenging. Semoga dirahmati Allah lah. Really it's very good. It's very difficult kan, sebab dia survivor dan juga terpaksa jadi caregiver. So I think dia banyak dia kena redha, dia kena be very strong lah. Kadang-kadang sebagai survivor mungkin dia ada kekuatan yang lain sebab dia dah survive. So dia ada kelebihan dalam diri dia yang dia boleh menolong orang lain sebagai caregiver, because they have gone through it themselves, so they know exactly what that person is going through, so that makes you a better caregiver. Tetapi sebab also of the additional burden of being a survivor that they had to go through that, so kadang-kadang they need help also, they need support from their family members, not to do everything. Like what I said, like caregiving is not you have to do everything, you can divide it. You must divide the task. You must always remember to be kind and to love yourself, because when we don't love ourselves, we fall sick. And then if you fall sick, you cannot look after the other person. So you have to look after yourself. You cannot go through burnout now. So a lot of caregivers I found they go through a lot of burnout, because so much is expected from them. They're expected to do everything. So you have to be very clear what you can do as a caregiver. You have to discuss with other people. The other people have to take the roles and responsibilities. Apa yang kita perhatikan di sini, kadang-kadang dalam sesuatu keluarga tu, setengah orang ambil lebih burden dari orang lain. It's not shared out completely. And kalau kita berbincang dengan semua orang, actually semua orang ada isu masing-masing. Setengah orang takut, dia tak boleh tengok pesakit kanser itu suffer. So sebab kakak dia buat semua, dia macam rasa dia tak terdaya. Bukan dia tak boleh buat. Dia rasa macam biarlah kakak dia buat, dia tak nak buat. So you have to have a proper discussion and divide it properly, what you can do and not do. As a survivor, I think you should prioritize your own health, because you are scared of recurrence. Also, you need to look after your health, your immunity. So like I said, you have your strengths being a survivor, so you can be a good carer, but you don't have to do everything. You need help and support from other people also, so that this caregiving is actually shared among everyone. Okay, it's not an easy process lah. But what you have to remember here is it is a process. It is a process. There's no one-off decision. Things change. It's a continuous process. But selalu redha dan bersyukur, then seek help from Allah lah, in who you whichever God you believe in. Seek help. Semoga segala yang dibuat ni memang mendapat keredaan dan rahmat Allah. And also seek help from health professionals. The health professionals may be able to guide you properly. Okay, I hope that helps lah in some way. My answer has helped in some way.
Jadi kalau untuk survivor ni dan juga menghadapi stres dan murung, macam mana dia nak kekalkan mood dia yang tak stabil ni, Prof?
So mood ni adalah satu benda yang is our emotion lah kan, our mood kan, perasaan kita. So when everything is going well, apabila semua benda okay, then we feel okay, is okay. But when things start going wrong, then of course our mood is affected. So like I said, you have to know what is normal mood, what is the normal anger, what is the normal sadness, and you must know when it is becoming not normal already. So that's where our borang saringan is important. Like you continuously have low mood, you're continuously sad, almost the whole day, almost every day, for more than 2 weeks, then you need help before it becomes a disease, it becomes a diagnosable psychiatric disorder. So when this happens, then maybe you need to talk to someone. Talk to someone positive who can listen to you. Do your hobbies, what you love to do the most. Take a break. Take a break. Enjoy yourself. Do something that you enjoy. Pray. Seek spiritual support. Seek Allah's help, and then talk to your loved ones, close ones, people who understand you, and then do things that you enjoy. Buy something nice for yourself. Do your hobbies. Do something that you love. So maybe this can help to lift up your mood, because setengah orang dia bercakap dengan orang yang dia sayang, dia rasa okey. Kan dia rasa lebih okey, ataupun dia bercakap dengan orang yang faham perasaan dia akan rasa okey. But like I said, it's not a one-off thing. That okay is not like okay forever. You can feel okay for a while, but after that maybe you need a support group, kan, dengan kawan-kawan. You need to continuously schedule. I have like every day schedule something nice that I want to do for myself. You have to keep this continuous. Every day there is something nice I want to do for myself. Maybe today is like drinking a nice cup of coffee somewhere. Simple things. Ataupun orang yang berkebun. Every day they look forward to berkebun. Nak tengok bunga dia, pokok dia. They feel happy. So you must do something that elevates your mood lah. And then like meet friends who make you happy lah. Like we pray 5 times a day, kan? So we are always praying. And then like if you feel that all this doesn't help, then you need to actually ask for some professional help. But you need to know that it's a continuous process, and as long as you keep trying to keep your spirits uplifted, be confident that is working for you. You have to train your mind to think positively also. So kadang-kadang orang kata memang keluar, lepas tu balik rasa sedih semula. Dia memang macam tu. You cannot expect it like you buat sekali itu and then it's happy always. You must know it's a process. So you must do something nice for yourself every day to keep your mood uplifted.
Jadi proses itu akan berulang lah, Prof, ya? Bukan once kita dah buat ni dia akan habis atau macam tu.
Yes. Okay. So it's a continuous process lah. It's a process. Yeah.
Okay. Ni yang last question, Prof, sebelum kita end our session. Okay.
Alright.
So what the do's and don'ts conversation yang perlu bila kita bercakap dengan survivor yang dalam situasi stress and depressed? Apa yang boleh, apa yang tak boleh, Prof? When kita communicate dengan survivor yang sedang depressed ni.
Okay. So actually Care ada keluarkan satu buku, The Tips of Do's and Don'ts, apabila menziarah pesakit kanser. So it's very good. Dia diterbitkan oleh mantan pengarah kita, Prof. Datin Dr. Rosie Mahmud. So that's a very good book. It has a lot of tips on what you do and say when you visit cancer patients, what you do. So but this one kalau bercakap dari segi emosi kan, dia so if you know someone is already sad they have cancer, so try not to say things to make them more sad lah, like like I hope I don't get cancer, it's so scary to get cancer. Macam you're not being very understanding to that person's emotion. So kalau kita faham perasaan survivor tu dan dia tengah sedih, so kita cuba elakkan dari menyebut perkara yang menyebabkan dia lebih sedih lah, atau kita cuba cari benda yang dia suka, benda yang dia happy. If you know them well, sometimes you know the right things to say to them because certain things make them happy. Mungkin bercakap pasal anak dia ke, bila nak balik ni, anak dia bila nak datang melawat ni, ataupun mungkin anak dia beli sesuatu untuk dia, ataupun dia beli baju baru. You try to just say anything that lifts the person up. Tapi that actually is very dependent on how well you know the patient, kan? So if you know the survivor well, you know the right things to say which will make them happy, you make the effort to say and do the right things. And then if you don't know, then it's better that you don't try to say or do anything lah. So you just, like I said, listen, try to listen to them, understand them, and try to untuk survivor cancer ni kan, kalau dia masih menjalani rawatan, I feel like it helps a lot of people when their friends and their families go with them, because it's like something that you do together. They don't feel alone, they feel they are with someone. So like when they go for the checkup, the annual screening test or something that you can do with them to when they see the doctor, so they feel that they have your support, so it's very subjective also. Dia bergantung kepada survivor tu apa yang dia perlukan. And if you can't talk to the survivor, sometimes you can talk to their family members. I've had a very close friend who died of cancer, and before I visited her, I think I spoke to her family members the do's and don'ts before seeing her. So they'll say, you don't mention this, you don't mention that she has lost weight, don't mention that she looks. So kadang-kadang macam kita tak tahu, kita dah lama tak jumpa dia, tiba-tiba kurus sangat, and then so at least the family member told me that don't say that she has lost weight, don't say this, don't say that. So you can ask someone closer to the survivor what you can say or do. So you must remember your whole objective of being with the survivor, helping the survivor, is actually to make them feel better. So I hope that has also helped my answer.
Okay. Terima kasih Prof. Sharina atas penjelasan tentang soalan-soalan di kemudian. Terima kasih kepada semua yang mengikuti sesi pada hari ini. Jangan lupa ikuti Canwork untuk makluman terkini dan informasi di media sosial kami seperti yang tertera. Dan jika ingin mendapatkan buku-buku terbitan Canwork, boleh dapatkan melalui akaun Shopee iaitu Canwork Shop, atau hubungi urus dia seperti nombor yang tertera. Dan terima kasih. InsyaAllah kita berjumpa lagi di lain program yang mana kita telah rancangkan ada pelbagai program di bawah kempen Jom Sihat Bersama Canwork ini. Sekian, terima kasih Prof, terima kasih semua. InsyaAllah kita jumpa lagi